Hey guys, so if you're watching this, you're wondering about the new Spaceman indicators. In this case, it's SpaceTime Remastered. It's been a while since I've made a video, so do mind me if I'm a little bit rusty. I'm making this video now because obviously I had planned to add initial balance and it's finally out. So if you are a Spaceman member, a lot of you guys are in the Discord. It's great to see you guys in the Discord. Active members are chosen monthly. They get free extensions to their memberships. But just besides that, if you're in the Discord, you already know that this is out. For those of you who have missed this, I hope this video catches you. And for everyone new and who hasn't joined yet, maybe this will convince you to join with this whole Space-Time Remastered. I'm going to cover what it is, what the differences are between this one and the last one, and how to set it up. So when you start this indicator, this is pretty much how it loads on default. It's the only difference being the initial balance will be a different color. So if we go ahead and check that out right now, you can see this is white, it's usually blue. Yeah, so that's the difference, the color of the initial balance. If you see here, it usually loads like this, I believe, but I like white, so I'm gonna keep it as white. So let's go through the defaults, the default settings, and I'll explain the purpose for every change and everything about this new one. First of all, to start with, this one was remade just because the old one had some issues. It was slower, it wasn't multi-session compatible. Those are the main things, to be honest. I hated how slow it was and I knew I could make it better. And there's some extra data that I wanted to grab, and because of how slow it was, it would either be optimizing the old one or remaking it to be multi-session compatible and doing optimizations to go along. So that was the whole point of it, and that's what I basically did. I optimized it as I went along while remaking it. And the main thing being that a lot of you guys already know is you can now do multiple sessions at the same time. So it could be daily and weekly, or daily and monthly, or you could do the typical London, New York, Tokyo, you know, the Forex session split. And I think that's a pretty advantageous thing to have. So if I show you guys that right now, you'll see it come up, and let me drop to a lower time frame so it's a little bit more easy to see. And you're wondering why it's so sparse. That's because auto tick is on. So let's disable auto tick. And then you can see all these levels kind of like come together to make it a little bit more easy to read. And then you get all these sessions at the same time, so initial balance is overlapping on this. I'm gonna disable that just temporarily. And you can see all of these sessions are actually generating profiles at the same time, so whenever they have time overlaps between the sessions, it's actually being able to pull the data and create a profile on that at once, which is pretty interesting to use. And I actually really like that it can do this. I personally prefer daily and weekly, and I can go over that in a different video, but I'm gonna give sessions a bit more of a looking into in the future. I'm just gonna cover the basics of this indicator for now. So what's the changes? So when you load on default, you see auto tick is on, and the reason auto tick is on is because a lot of new people won't really know much about tick sizes and stuff yet, and so I'm just trying to make it easy for onboarding new people. My members will be able to attest to the fact that using manual tick size is better, and a lot of them actually they start with auto and they move to manual. Auto is also really good for if you want to jump to a different coin. So let's go to Soul. You'll see that it will work with every coin, and that's beautiful. So when you're quickly scanning, it actually does a pretty good job on Soul. When you're quickly scanning through charts, it'll give you a rough idea. Okay, these are the value areas. I see some value migration downwards. It just gives you a quick way to scan charts. But if you really want to get into it, I highly recommend just disabling this and then manually dialing in your tick size. Now I won't go over how to do that. You guys should know if you've been around for the old videos, because Spacetime Profile Advanced, all the concepts are the same. This is just covering all the differences now. So I prefer manually dialing it in, and that's just standard practice. If you're good with what you do, you manually do things to set it up, give you some advantages by doing so. Anyway, let's continue. So there's not going to be a tutorial on how to use this. I'm writing a thread, and it should hopefully be published by CoinMarketMan soon. But yeah, this will cover the differences. So the next big difference, besides this multi-session split, which I highly recommend you guys do, I'll cover that in a bit, is this display. Previously, there was like illustration mode, TPO lettering, TPO block, all that stuff. I wanted to keep it really simple and just give you display of the profile itself and not how it's like displaying TPO. And that TPO option should hopefully be coming. I'm not sure if I need it yet. Depends how many people will ask for it. I don't really use TPO too much. I prefer the levels and understanding the profiles, poor highs and lows. I don't for me, TPO isn't too important currently. As long as you understand the TPO concept and how it builds to form the POC, and then you get your value areas and stuff, I think that's the most important bit. And then the profile shapes and all that stuff, in my opinion, is a little bit more important. But for people who need TPO, just request it and I'll add it in. So what are these display levels? Well, display is basically covering how we're displaying all of this data. Display all obviously includes the rest of the profile outside of the value area, but VA plus levels is the one I like to use most. And you might be wondering why, because you obviously lose the excesses and poor highs and lows and all that stuff besides the value area. Well, first of all, I quite like to keep it simple when I'm using profiles. I like to focus on value migration as one of the key things. I know a lot of people do. And then when regards to excesses and so on and so forth, I think it's kind of obvious to tell when an excess is forming. That's not what I'm going for, just hear me out. So I think it's obvious when an excess is forming. You've clearly come to the edge of the profile because you know the day starts here and this is the new high of day, and we've had a massive wick and it's higher than the previous. You could kind of tell, okay, this is the current excess. So while you have this on all, you should be able to see, cool, that's your excess, right? But the thing that I say, the reason I prefer VA plus levels is you should be looking for excess and plays into it, as in, okay, this is a selling tail, I might short when we revisit that once it's formed and confirmed. So personally, having on VA plus levels for me is huge. I care about the excess in the current time, like as it's happening, and I'll keep it in mind. But once it's formed is when I'm more interested in using that excess as a play, right? So for me, VA plus levels is huge. It gives me some more TPO prints, gives me just the key thing that I care about, which is the value migration. And so when I go on the weekly, I could do VA plus levels as well, and then you should be able to see that come into fruition in a bit. You know, let me just increase the tick on the weekly because obviously we've got a lot more data going on. And that should load up. This is a lot faster than the old one, so this should say a lot that this is still struggling. It's not even struggling comparatively, like compared to the old one, this is so much better. But yeah, this gives me an idea of my weekly value areas, right? And so I prefer just having the values on show. I don't mind. I do toggle on all quite a lot, but just for when I'm mainly focusing on trading, VA plus levels is everything for me. And so then you're wondering, what about levels? Levels themselves is just highlighting the levels. So I don't do this on the daily. I like to do this on like a higher time frame, and I go into like 4 hour, and then I'll turn on. So I've got the monthly levels. So that's telling me, okay, on the monthly, these are my SPs. This is my excess. These are well, that's my POC. It's been tapped now. These are my naked POCs, and you can see how this naked POC on the monthly actually tapped and helped form a bottom. Very interesting. If you had the monthly levels on, you would know that, but obviously you guys didn't have access to this at the time. But how pretty cool was that, right? You got all of this levels forming, but now you can also turn on your sessions for the weekly, and with VA plus levels, you can see, cool, we got some value migration happening, and we still got the monthly levels. Now, I think that's incredible. That's so much better than it previously used to be. You couldn't have like these overlapping and overarching levels and VA plus levels. Like you're gonna have these different sessions showing you different things. So currently you can get the low time frame view of the profiles with the higher time frame levels, and that's the main thing. Having this ability to customize the display for I just want the levels of the monthly, so I know what's going on in the high time frame, and for the low time frame I just want all or VA plus levels, which gives me an understanding of what's happening in the profile. I think that's incredible. But you know what, let's reset it back to default so we don't get too lost. And those are the two main things that I really like about this. I really like this display thing. I hate the old one. I only cared about these lines. I didn't really care about illustration mode and all that other garbage. It's not garbage, but I just prefer it this way. But in terms of these levels and stuff, having these higher time frame levels, you guys wouldn't understand how often I'd keep like at least the weekly levels on when I'm on my daily profile and stuff like that. And you guys understand ticks, so I won't cover that. Simple things like VA styles, POC styles, it's just how you want it to be displayed. I don't need to cover that. Thickness, you don't need that. Here's the next interesting bit, showing the text data. The reason I created this is it gives it a little bit more clarity of where I want to set bids. So let me disable auto tick again. Auto tick is the bane of my existence, at least on BTC. And so now I know, cool, this is excess between this region. I can set some stink bids here for at least like a intraday scalp if I'm interested. And you can see how we came to visit that excess and we provided a small bounce. Now it wasn't perfect. It's never like, you can't expect it to always be perfect, but it's good to know at a glance. Cool, my excess is between this region. I want to set some stink bids going down. And then you get your fills, it's filling, and your average is no longer just here or here. It's a little bit lower because you know exactly where to set your stink bids, and you don't have to kind of like eye it out and draw it out yourself to be like, okay, this is 36,600 or something, but you know it's actually 36,400. It's pretty cool. And that's including for obviously 36,800, 36,400. That's including the original excess. You can see that part of it's been filled and they got closed off. And I'll explain why this looks like this in a bit. Someone pointed out the other day, and I don't think it was quite well explained. But yeah, that's basically the main reason for adding this text data. You're like, okay, cool, fingerprints are between this region. I've got to be cautious of this being filled, and maybe I'm going to use that as my target. So let's say I enter the trade around here. Fingerprints, you know, they often get filled, so you're using this as your target for the day. I'm not saying that's how you obviously take trades just with that, but you know, keep that in mind. You're using this as your target for the day. You can set your ask going up. So maybe like you take a TP here, TP here, TP here, and you know this range. And I think that's incredible. So what's gonna come for the future of show text data? I should probably rename this. That sounds embarrassingly bad. But what will come for the future of that? Well, the reason tick size was included, by the way, was so, especially if you're on auto tick size, you know exactly what tick size the profile is using to generate this data. It's not as helpful on manual when you know what's going on, but let's say you have weekly on and you have your weekly at 150, it could be helpful to know that that's what's going on. But in the future for text data, I would like to include rotation factor, which is pretty helpful, and the TPO divisions. So such as like the 50-70 division, like of a TPO, right? You know that means imbalances between buying and selling, and this is bullish because we know there's more buyers stepping in below the POC and stuff like that. I need to include that. I think that'll be very helpful. I haven't included it yet. And the other thing I want to include is this greater customization of levels. And what do I mean by that? So with the levels as it is, you can choose what each profile session, the split, is showing. So I can disable on session 1 naked POCs, naked value areas, and naked excesses. For some reason, I say I want to do that. But on the weekly, I can just keep POCs and value areas, and that's, I think, very useful to simplify the screen. So let's do that right now. Let's disable naked SP. Let's disable naked excess. Let's disable naked POCs. Just have the levels. Look how much neater that is. If you're someone who doesn't need to always have that, especially on like high time frames, sometimes it can come in the way, and you just want to see what's important to you. You can do that now. I think that's incredible. And I'm glad I included it. Naked value areas I quite like, and naked POCs are pretty much always on, no matter what I'm doing. I pretty much always keep these on. But yeah, so that's the text concept. I want to add these to the text. So when it comes to the text, I want to be able to make it so you can choose if you have tick size on, if you have TPO count on, if you have TPO the divisions on it to show the imbalances, if you have the rotation factor on. I want to make that an option. It's not an option yet. It will require a significant amount of coding improvements, but it's consideration, and I can do it. It'll just take a bit of time, so I haven't had the time yet. And then IB is pretty straightforward, coloring straightforward. I think that's pretty much it. And obviously you could change your sessions times based off your time zone and display. I just got these values off of Investopedia just so it's pretty standard, like you can find where I found it. But yeah, that's pretty much everything. I want to make these text data a little bit more detailed. I want to give a TPO option potentially in the future, make it customizable. I think that's everything. If I've forgotten something, I do apologize. But yeah, that's the main concepts. Just having this multi-session view is huge. I do toggle between having 1 on and 2 on. I like 1 on like most of the time, and then like I'm like, shit, I want to know what's going on the monthly levels. I'll turn that on the weekly levels. Like one of my favorite setups is genuinely just weekly VAs and then monthly. Probably this the weirdest way. You know, let me do monthly levels, weekly value area migration. Turn this on. Turn that on to 100. Turn that on to 200, and you could just sort of see, like you can see the obvious value migration. If you're wondering why it doesn't go further back, that's just a trading view limitation, as always. But you can see how, you know, let's tidy this up. Let's disable, let's keep these on, keep that on. Let's disable all of these bad boys. And you can see how much neater this is, and then disable the initial balance because I don't care about that on the weekly profile much. You can see how this migration period, like you can see how it's slowly migrating down, and then you got your monthly levels to play off of, right? So you got that monthly naked POC that was tapped, right? And the beautiful thing is, because it's so simple, you can just change the coloring. So if I want to make my POC a little bit more obvious, I want to make it bright yellow, and you know, I could just disable this, and I know the POC that I'm looking for is a monthly POC. I want to play into this monthly POC next, for an example, if I'm expecting upwards rotation. But yeah, that's the main thing. I'm pretty happy with how this turned out. There can be improvements. There's always potentials for improvements, and I plan to make some. But for now, that's everything. I hope this video was helpful, and Jesus Christ, see you guys next time.